Welcome back. We have seen students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas turn grief into anger as they demand changes from Tallahassee to Washington. Much of that anger has been directed at Florida's Republican Senator Marco Rubio and his ties to the NRA. When we sat down yesterday, Rubio was eager to discuss all of this, but I started by asking him his reaction to the shooting itself.
Well, you don't react as a political figure, you react as what I am, the father of 2 high school students. And it affects you at an emotional level because you start to think, well, it happened in Parkland, but it could have happened in central Miami-Dade County. It could happen anywhere. And you don't immediately react to it as a political figure, you react to it as a human being who could very well have been the person getting that call. And then you recognize the stories that you're reading because they're your story. You know, some of these kids, I mean, literally my daughters are 15 and 17. They're the age of the victims. So and then you think as a political figure, well, you know, what could we have done in the law? Am I wrong? Have we missed something that we could have done different? And
how do you answer that question?
I answer the question I always have, and that it's complicated. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's a complicated issue, and I hope we'll have a chance to delve into the reasons why it's complicated. It's not unsolvable. It should be addressed. I've never said that we should just throw I mean, I see this reported. It's unfair. I've never said we can't do anything. I've just said we need to aim to do something that works.
You're talking about this morning on CNN, there was a student, a 17-year-old, who was on the air, and I'm just going to read. It was Rick Scott and Marco Rubio who allowed this to happen. They're enablers. He went on to say, as far as he's concerned, you have the blood of the victims on your hands, and they think that this is inevitable, that we can't do anything to stop it. It's too difficult. Well, we're done with that. That's what that student said.
Right. Well, and look, I'm not going to criticize a student who's just lived through something that I've never lived through. Obviously, it's not true. We didn't enable it, and we certainly have never said that I've never said there's anything you can't do about it. There are things we can do about it. What I have said is that the proposals out there would not have prevented it, and that's a fact. I mean, the Washington Post is not a conservative rag, and it ruled that was true. Now, just because the laws could not have done anything to prevent it doesn't mean that we can't have a debate on those laws anyway, and it doesn't mean there's nothing we can do.
I want to play for you one piece of sound from another student. David Hogg, who was a journalist at the school. He was there when the gunfire went off. I wanted you to hear again. This is what I think is different with what's going on now. Let's play that sound.
Make some compromises, get some stuff done, and keep doing it. Actually, keep your promises. Don't just make false promises just so you can get reelected. Actually follow through. And who knows, maybe you'll save some children's lives, because the amount of deaths that I've had to deal with my sister having 3 of her best friends die, and the numerous other families that have to go home to silent rooms for the rest of their lives with no children is absolutely unacceptable. It's deplorable. And something has to change. The policymakers in this country must work together. And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. These are children's lives.
Is he just being naive?
No, he's right on point. And we had that debate in 2013. And if you look at the votes, they all had over 50, but none gone to 60, except for the one that went down. Dianne Feinstein had an assault weapons ban. 16 Democrats voted against it because it had major problems. It failed. There was a bill by Senator Grassley that would have required states to report mental illness, or would have incentivized states to report mental illness, that would have stood up a study on mass shootings and tried to get to the core of the pathology of them. And it was voted against, not because it was a bad bill, but because it didn't go far enough. It happens on immigration, it happens on numerous issues, but he's 100% true. If a bill makes things better, we should vote for it and keep working. But we're in an era now where everybody wants to get 100% of what they want, or they just walk away.
But your voting record, you voted for a number of things as well. Where do you stand on bump stocks? Are you in support of outlawing them, banning bump stocks?
I think the ATR has the authority to ban them right now, and I think they're going to ban them.
But why? The bump stocks are the things that make a semi-automatic rifle. I'm just for the folks at home, a fully automatic. It's what was used in Las Vegas, and you can defer it to the ATF and the administration.
No. No, what I'm
Why
saying
not
is,
codify it in law?
Well, that's fine, but I'm saying you can't codify it, but I'm saying there's an answer already there. They can do it. By the way, I'd never even heard of a bump stock, okay, until the shooting in Las Vegas. It's the only time I've ever heard it come up. But people aren't going to want to hear it, but it's the truth. You don't need a bump stock to make it do what the bump stock makes it do. There are household items that you can use to make it happen.
All right, but just, let's just do this.
But hold on, I agree. That's fine, and I hope they do it. And if they don't, then we should pass a law.
So you'll vote for that you'll vote to ban them.
Sure, but I'm trying to tell you, you're still going to have the people out there doing it, even though it may no longer be legal to buy the device. It may be a little harder, but they will do it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I guess my point that I'm trying to make is, if something allows a gun to do what that gun is not legally allowed to do, there shouldn't be able to sell a device that allows you to do it.
You voted also against limiting capacity of magazines used in assault weapons. I think there was a bill that said you could not have a magazine that held 10 or more bullets. You voted against that. Why? Because
there's no evidence that doing that would have prevented any of these shootings. There are legitimate reasons why people want those for hunting purposes. What is a legitimate reason for an AR-15 to be able to have 30 or 50 rounds in a clip? Well, first of all, they don't have 50. Number two is, the second reason is that people that are in, whether it's sport shooting or for example, they are used in hunting. I heard somebody say yesterday they're not. And so the rationale is that they use those, and if you have to reload every time, it would affect either the sport shooting aspect or the hunting aspect. Now, the details of that bill had other things in it that were beyond the magazine capacity. And the third is, and again, the studies are here, I have it. It's one of the issues that it talks about in this fact check from the Washington Post. In the history of the mass shootings, there has never been one that would have been prevented by the magazine limit. So again, if that's the rationale for doing it, the evidence is that it wouldn't have stopped it. Now, if you just generally want to argue that people shouldn't be allowed to have it, that's another item. But that gets into the broader question. And separate from this, okay, because there's one argument, right, whether or not it would have prevented the shootings. This is not me saying it's a fact that they would not have. But that doesn't mean you don't continue the debate. There's a second part of this debate, and that is, why do people need these guns at all? Why does someone need an AR-15? That's a valid question, is it not? And that is, if I'm a law-abiding citizen and you say to me that person's going to break into your house and they're going to have a gun that has more capacity than the one that you have a right to defend your family with. I don't have an AR-15, okay? But that person's going to break into your house with a gun that has more capacity than I do. Why is that fair? The other argument they make is, I'm a law-abiding person. I don't break the law. Why should you take away from me something because of the actions of a handful of people that killed a lot of people? And that's the counter argument. So and that's why, by the way, so where do you come down? I argue the same thing. Number one, the law would not prevent these mass shootings. Number two, there are millions of them in the street already. They're here to stay. That genie's out of the bottle. It's the same argument as get rid of all nuclear weapons. We could, but China's not, Russia's not. So that's the second argument. The third argument is the one that people make, and that is, that's a compelling argument, is it not? Now, do I believe it should that you should be able to defend yourself against someone that has a weapon more powerful than yours? That said, do I believe it should be harder to get one? Especially, do I believe it should be impossible for someone to get one if they are under the condition that the shooter was in Parkland? Absolutely. And one of the problems we have there is we don't have the complete mental health picture in the background check system. I'll tell you right now what somebody sitting at home is thinking as they're listening to you say that. You're being reasonable, you're talking about all these things that could happen, yet nothing actually does happen, and they wonder if it's because you've received so much funding and support from the NRA. The number that gets thrown out there is misleading. The $3.3 million you've received over the last 10 years is not directly to you. It's either contributions to you or in groups in support of your campaign. Well, it's not contributions at all, because the contribution limit is $2,700. No, what I'm saying is money spent in campaigns, either attacking my opponent or supporting me, which if I'm running against someone that's against the Second Amendment or against gun rights, that would be logical. Just like groups that support gun restrictions spend money against me. But the point is there are people who believe that while you talk, say, yes, we should get rid of bump stocks, yes, we should allow the CDC, you're not doing anything to move forward on those, in part because you don't want to anger the NRA. No, but first of all, they support my agenda. I don't support theirs. These are the things I stand for, and I always have. So it is logical in American politics that if you believe in a certain set of ideas, the people who support their ideas will advocate on your behalf, and by the way, the people that are against it would advocate against you.